You can literally travel to this destination with just $5. What's up, everybody? So you want to travel the world, but you have no money. You want to go on an adventure, but you really don't know kind of where to start. Well, sit back, relax, and from my 3 years of continuous traveling experience, I'm going to tell you guys the top 11 locations you can travel to if you have no money. Well, like basically no money. Number 1 is Vietnam. Home to crazy motorbikes, friendly locals, and amazing vegan food. Vietnam makes for one of the most amazing and cheap destinations in the world. The variety of food is absolutely insane, and most dishes go for about $1 a plate. For housing, Vietnam is actually one of the most prevalent locations for couch surfing. If you don't know what couch surfing is, look it up right now. It's basically a website where you sleep on a stranger's couch that you've only messaged once or twice. It's better than that, okay? It's a very reliable and incredible site where you meet locals and they show you around, and just look it up. Now, couch surfing is free, so housing could be free if you wanted it to be. Now, if you don't want to sleep on a stranger's couch that actually does turn into your friend, I totally understand. Hostels are also quite cheap. They go for about like $4 to like a high-end one of $8 a night. Now, for extra fun activities like, I don't know, shooting an AK-47, renting a motorbike, going to karaoke with your friends, it's probably gonna come to around like $7 to $10 a day. All in all, like per day, like really maximizing your experience in Vietnam, you're looking at about like $25 to $30 a day. Number 2 is India. India is one of the most diverse places in the world. It has over 29 different states, over 100 different languages. The food culture there is absolutely incredible. Like, you go to a different state, they have different kinds of bread, they have different kinds of like vegetarian dishes, meat dishes, you name it. And things in India they're ridiculously cheap. You know, an incredible meal costs about like $2 a plate. Hostels, they come at about like $6 a night. And for fun, this is kind of where India gets a tiny bit expensive. Although you might not be kind of like the landmark chaser or kind of like selfie person at all like the big landmarks around the world, India does have some of the like best and most famous landmarks in the world. And at all these landmarks in India, they cost money. Each landmark, depending on kind of like the fame of them, costs at about like $5 to $15. Personally, for me, there are some landmarks that you can't miss, like the Taj Mahal. And the Taj Mahal costs about like $15 to enter. But also for me, I skipped many different locations, so India went at about like the same rate as Vietnam, like $25 to $30. Number 3 is Russia. Now, the reason why Russia is cheap is a little bit sad. The Russian ruble has totally collapsed, and really it makes it cheap for foreigners to go there and explore the country. Where a plate of food used to cost like $7 and $9, it now costs about like $3 to $5. And also going towards like more special, more unique activities of Russia, ballet used to cost like, $60, $50, $60. Now it costs like $5 to $10. And it's funny, but another kind of I'm not a partier traveler, but when you're in Russia, there's just something about the culture that draws you into kind of the party mentality. So for kind of like vodka and nights out, you should allot about like maybe $7 a night. Now, this really depends on how much you do go out, but usually Russia would cost you about like $30 in total a day. Now, number 4 is Mongolia, possibly one of the coolest countries that I have ever been to.
So, we are here on the sand dunes of Gobi.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
And we are about to run down this dune.
It was tomorrow's.
Ready? Go.
It's really one of the most unexplored countries in the world, and because of that, things are super cheap. Now, in the actual city, the capital of Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar, food, it comes, sometimes expensive, sometimes cheap. Like, you're probably looking at about like $4 to $5 a meal. But once you get out of the big city, once you're kind of in the real part of Mongolia, like the general part of Mongolia, this is where things get super cheap. There are no big cities outside of the big capital of Mongolia. Ulaanbaatar literally has something like 60% of the population of Mongolia lives there. There's an insane amount of just like openness and incredible nature to discover. So how you get out there usually is either by a van or you actually buy a horse. For me, I went with the van. You just pick like the 6 like best friends that you meet at the hostel and you just go out into the Mongolian nature. Now out here in the nature of Mongolia where you are for most of your trip, things come super cheap. You usually bring your own food like pasta or oatmeal, and this, you know, it's not even a cost. It costs like 30 cents a plate. For the transportation to get out there, usually a van per person will cost anywhere from like $8 to $10 a person. Just a warning, these vans are not the most comfortable in the world. They're old Soviet vans and they're kind of like a 2 kind of like row seater. So if you do Mongolia right and really experience the nature of Mongolia, you can be looking at about like $20 a day for Mongolia. Now number 5 is China. Now China is one of the biggest countries in the world and really the most diverse kind of like pricing like through each region. However, most regions they have incredibly cheap food. You can find plates of food for like anywhere from like $2 to $3. And let me tell you, this is like really actually like good food. This is not like going to your local Chinese like shop. This is real, authentic, incredible food. Now, depending on where you're at, hostels are usually also very affordable. In smaller cities like right next to the Tibetan border or in like Upper Mongolia, these places, you know, hostels go for about $4. If you're in the bigger cities like Beijing or Shanghai, they're probably gonna go for about like $12. Now, here's where China gets a little bit expensive. You know, all around China, no matter if you're going there for hiking or kind of just to explore, you're going to visit landmarks and also national parks. And literally all national parks, landmarks, like any set of nature in China costs money. And to be honest, the price of these places are not cheap. Usually national parks go for anywhere from like $16 to $20. And really this is not cool. You know, national parks are a part of, you know, the landscape and they're a part of the nation. And to, you know, pay $20 to enter each one, it kind of sucks. But let me tell you how you get around this. Like I said, it does cost $20 to get into the park. And this is true. But if you have a student ID and you indicate that you're slightly a student, even if you're older than a student's age, you get half off. Now, I'm not telling you to go get yourself a fake student ID, but I'm gonna tell you that there's many places in China where you possibly can. Depending if you're a student or not, I'm gonna say China is costing you at about like $30 to $40 a day. Number 6 is Thailand. Thailand is home to one of the like best food selections in the world, and really the locals are some of the most friendly. So from kind of the coastal beach areas to the big cities of Bangkok and Chiang Mai, Thailand is absolutely incredible and you will discover so much there. Now for the prices, food will come super cheap at about like $1 to $2 a plate. Hostels the same thing. Even if you're in a big city of Bangkok or the islands, it's gonna come at about like $4 to $6 a night. Now Thailand is possibly like the party capital of Southeast Asia, so your extracurricular is kind of depends on how much you party. Of course, the party culture in Thailand costs cheaper than say New York or Australia or Bali or really like anywhere, but it still adds up. So I'm guessing if you don't party every night and you kind of like party maybe once or twice a week, your extracurriculars are gonna come to about like $5 to $8 a day. All in all, Thailand will be about like, I would say $20 to $25 a day. Number 7 is Venezuela. Now, Venezuela is a bit of like a wild card here. You know, like the people are a little bit revolting, the government's like almost being overthrown. shit is going down in Venezuela. But if you do kind of steer clear of the actual city itself and go to the coast, you're in for one of the best deals in history. Right now, Venezuela and the government are like restricting US dollars from coming into the country. So if you were to bring US dollars in and exchange it on the black market, you're going to get a ridiculous rate. Personally, I don't recommend you do that because it's an incredibly dangerous process, but I do know many people that have done it and it's been quite easy. If you do this, you're looking at ridiculously incredible deals. If you do go to the coast and if you do find like a 5-star hotel, you can stay there for about $9 a night. And if you're into like vintage cars, specifically like 59 Cadillacs, you can rent those for $3 for a day. Food is just like ridiculously cheap. If you go to like a 5-star restaurant, like an incredible restaurant, you're looking at about like $5 a plate. So all in all, for luxury in Venezuela, you're probably looking for like $20 to $25. Now, if you want to do Venezuela on the cheap, you can literally travel to this destination for just $5. Now, before you kind of like freak out and you're like, that's not possible, like what are you talking about? Let me explain. You know, a room in the city and even the coast, like a basic room, it'll cost you something like $10 a month. And food, like I said, like in a 5-star restaurant, yeah, sure, it'll cost you $5 a plate. But in kind of like just a restaurant on the street, you're looking at maybe about like 10 to 20 cents US dollar. So yeah, per day you're looking maybe at like $5 if you want to do it on the cheap. Number 8 is Colombia. Colombia is one of the most colorful and most amazing, like inspiring countries that I have ever been to. But also it comes at a very cheap cost. If you want to rent a room for a month, it's gonna go for like $90, and like an everyday hostel will go for about like, again, like $4 to $6. Now for food it goes at about like $2 to $3 a plate, but these plates are absolutely huge. If you don't know what a bandeja paisa is, look it up right now, or I'll throw a photo like right there. The plate of food is massive, your stomach just gets like so full, and then you have kind of food for later for dinner. Now in Colombia, for me, the most special and kind of like rewarding experiences were the day trips. Day trips to places like Guatapé and Antioquia and Playa Blanca and Cartagena. It's kind of like one of those all-inclusive day trips, like transportation, food, you know, like a tour guide, like all of that stuff. And that will come to about like $10 to $12 a day. So seeing if you do maybe like 1 or 2 of those a week, and the other times you're just exploring like Colombia, you're probably looking at about like $20 to $25 a day. Number 9, sticking with South America, is Bolivia. Bolivia is one of my favorite countries for the nature and also the colorful people. And honestly, no matter what you're into, like whether that be adventure, culture, food, Bolivia has it all. At the Marcas, food here costs about like $1 to $2 a plate. And surprisingly, Bolivia has some of the nicest hostels that I've ever stayed in. And the hostel prices are just about the same as like Thailand, at about $4 to $6 a night. Now, the only 2 things about Bolivia are the transportation and the extra kind of like 3-day adventures. In Bolivia, really the only way to get around is either by very expensive plane or by night bus. And the night buses, they come at a good deal because, you know, night buses, they cost at about like $10 to $12 a night, but if you factor in kind of like your hostel for that night and also your transportation and like everything, it's not that bad. But the 3-day adventures, there's 2 3-day adventures that are kind of prevalent and really like every tourist does. The first is the rainforest. Now this, I've heard, can be done for very cheap, but it's like super sketchy, but usually it's about like $50 a night. And the second kind of 3-day adventure is to the Salar. The Salar, it comes at about like, I think I paid something like $120 for 3 nights. And to be honest, like, yes, this may be a little bit more expensive than your everyday activities, but to be honest, it's one of the best experiences of your life. So number 10 is going back to Southeast Asia, to Cambodia. Cambodia, just like its neighbors of Thailand and Vietnam, is super cheap. Just like Thailand and Vietnam, Cambodia has an incredible amount of land to explore. You can rent a motorbike or even a bicycle and kind of like just bike off to the nearby towns around the big cities. And the locals, they're some of the nicest locals that I have ever met. They'll offer you to sit down to eat a meal with them. They offer you sometimes papaya. It's an incredible experience, and for me, Cambodia is just like, it's a priceless opportunity. However, it's ridiculously cheap. You know, meals, they come at anything from like 50 cents to $2. And the hostels are also some of the cheapest in the world. Like, I've heard of my friends getting some hostels for $2 a night. Personally, I stayed at hostels for $4 to $6 a night, so there's some room there for exceptional prices. All in all, really the prices of Cambodia depend on the transportation that you use. Whether you fly, which is just crazy, or whether you take a bus, you're looking at about like $15 to $25 a day. Number 11, this is kind of a wild card. I'm gonna say New York City. I live in New York City right here. That's New York right there. That is New Jersey. Very different areas. But let me explain why I think New York should be included on this list. Now, like I said for Vietnam, New York also has one of the most prevalent communities of couch surfers in the world. And this comes at a really cool opportunity. You can stay with a local New Yorker in Manhattan or in Brooklyn, and it's an incredible opportunity. Unlike Vietnam, this kind of cheapness factor of New York definitely depends on couch surfing. Hostels here are ridiculous in price. Sometimes they go for $50 a night, sometimes they go for $40. It really depends on the area that you choose. There's some in Chinatown where you can like rent out just like a lazy boy chair for $20. But I would not suggest that. Stay with a couch surfer, make a friend, meet a local. It's an incredible experience. For food, New York is absolutely like the haven of dollar meal. I actually did a dollar meal video here, but overall, guys, it's kind of like how you travel. Like, if you want to eat local, if you want to live local, if you want to hang out with locals, it's gonna be cheaper. For me, this is my favorite way to travel. It's an incredibly liberating and free way to kind of, you know, just show yourself that you do not need a massive budget to enjoy yourself. Okay guys, so go out, explore, just enjoy this life that we live, even if you have